Yo, we're back. We took a few hours of a break. Pretty much like 4 hours now, right? I did a lot of other stuff, so I did not just take a break and piss off. I actually did a lot of stuff. Also, I ate and stuff like that. So anyways, welcome back to the stream. Hello, everybody. So, we need to write a little bit more. As I said earlier, we have like different approaches to this. We could do more writing of the ancestries. I call them species. Disclaimer, I call them species because I don't think races fit very much in a fantasy setting. So I'm not calling them races, right? And species fits more because we have also like monstrous species here. So yeah. But what I wanted to do was I wanted to talk about the possibilities of these. And I have to say, at the moment, I have many as in. So we're opening one side quickly. I do this so you don't see if I had like some brother history. I don't think I have, but Archive of Nethys, right? And we have the side here. You can see basically everything except for the sidebar there. We don't want first edition, we want second edition. And now you don't see anything. So we have the Psy Oxes, right? These guys. Caribou, right? Those are there. Minata, known for magical gems in the foreheads that are said to contain their souls. So I'm not 100% sure if we want them in. I don't think they fit very well. So what we're doing is we're playing Sorting Hat, right? Let's start with the Sarangai. So the Sarangai, right? Cover blah 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 across Tianjia. I will put it like where's my web browser? There. Make it fit the side for the time being. Whoop, whoop. So let's go through them. Carabao-headed people survived in forest, Tangia. Many adventurers have thought of them as monsters first, but Sarangai are nothing more than thriving society who value their community and their souls above everything else. Their cultures are built upon intense desire to protect their communities and their chosen leader. Their horns are said to be a crescent moon, and their flowering statues are said to have come from their ancestors, being stretched so far up to reach the father moon, while their mother earth kept them closer to her bosom. Okay. They revere the father moon and the first ancestor. Blah blah bloop. Sangai tend to be rare and appear rarer within the diverse adventure cities. When they leave the society, it's typically because they have a duty to fulfill. Or they must depart on to save the community in the rising chaos. So I'm not sure if I want to have the Psycha cows. Those are like the ones that I'm really unsure about. The Yaoguai are the living items, right? Yeah, those are like the hey, I am the loot spirit. I am the paper spirit. I am the everything spirit. And sold fountain pens, yeah. I'm like thinking, so I think we kick out the Serengei. I don't want them because I want to keep the Minotaurs, and the Minotaurs and the Serengei, we can put them, like, again, we can put, like, them in the Minotaur camp. They're too similar. They're like spiritual cows instead of, like, monstrous cows, right? And I think we have so many spiritual people, which is fine. You can have many spiritual, like, societies, but I still think the Serengei are, like, the ones that don't fit 100%. I like the idea that they house their soul gems on their head, but I think this is like... Let's kick the ancestry out. We kick them out finally. The Yaoguai, still not 100% sure if we want to keep them or no. We have the puppets, we have the animated animals. I don't want to kick them out just for like kicking them out's sake. I do not know how to fit them properly, except for like say, oh, they were uncovered, right? They're like similar to everything else that is an animated object. They are just there. The question is, do they add something to the setting? Except for like another heritage. This is like the thing for our games, you could just reflavor one as the other, right? Which is why I'm like thinking they go to unavailable on Aziko as well. The Anadi are like the worst one. I like the idea of the arachnids. The Anadi are the one thing that is not covered by anything, right? Like we don't have like arachnids at all. We have bugs because we rewrote the dwarves and we rewrote the dwarves and the halflings, but we do not have arachnids. Which is why I like the idea of having them. But you would have to rewrite them really, really heavily because in spider form, you can't use anything. And even though this guy's like celebrating really hard, like, way, right? This is what they usually look like. To be honest, it's not that much. We have it with other species. The thing is, thematically, they would add arachnid, which is something again we do not have, and I would see that arachnids evolve as well to some degree on this fucked up planet. We also do not have many other Underdark species except for Goloma and Circe. If we put them two in, then we have like these two plus the halflings, right? And the flesh warps as the antagonist. Before I can live with. The problem is, we have a lot of like landmass still to cover. Even though the planet seems to be small, if we think about it, right? It still does it. Basically, most of the stuff happened here, right? This is like the main happenings. So we have like two basically continents that we can still populate, which is why I'm thinking about this. Again, I don't have anything against the Anadi per se. If we would make them like the others, where it's like you do not have a human form, I can see them getting in. I put them here again. And both Tor races go in. I've decided that. I think both Minotaurs and Centaurs are kinda interesting. I see them more like actually like 1 second. I think what I would do with them with the Anadi is they have a humanoid form where they are actually bipedal and where they have at least appendages to use stuff. Just like with like maybe two legs serving as like hands, quote unquote. Very similar to how the Kitsune have just the hybrid form and the animal form, and that's how I would do the Anadi as well, hybrid and animal. But then instead of a fox, they're a spider. That's the only difference I would do to them. I would definitely put Minotaur and Centaur in, because we need to use the other continents, and it would be wise for us to make like the places a little bit inhospitable and have those two actually like be antagonistic towards each other. With a Centaur being still half horse. Are they? You mean if they are like you mean if they're muffled, right? They're not muffled. Is there not safe for work? I got my screen, no. But I could see them like, I not like this. I would see them like a bit more like fucked up looking humans. Not like human-like, they have the spider head. But I could see like, instead of having like hands, they had like, they have like the, basically like 2 legs to stand on. Basically 4 legs to stand on. Where like 2 of them are basically like, this set of arms is basically like Squidward from SpongeBob, if you will. That only like 2 arms are like 2, well, 1 pair of arms equals 1 like actual arm. So they have like scissor-esque hands. Right? Where they have like 4 legs down here, and then like 4 legs as arms. But that's the only thing I would like consider probably, because otherwise they like look too cartoony. I don't want them to look like too ridiculous. Then again, we have like Kung Fu Panda in our settings, so hey. Same with the centaur. We just need to think about how the centaur upper body looks. If we have the centaur upper body, I feel like centaurs would fit. And I actually would keep them a little bit closer to the Warcraft centaurs, where they're like actually like pillagers and a menace, instead of like the, oh no, I am somewhat Greek centaur who is nice and we are like hunters and gatherers, we like horse play, right? While the minotaurs, I feel like I don't want them to like mirror the tauren, but they should be like still aggressive. I think like both of them are like equally aggressive and they just hate each other. But I don't know how to make them like the centaurs especially is like the only disadvantage is I do not know how the upper body will look. I'm thinking about like centaurs way too much in my free time, because I'm like, okay, a centaur is a half human, half horse, and I'm like, no, they don't need to be half human, half horse. For all we care, a centaur could be half crab, half horse, half horse, half horse, just horse. I was actually thinking we go the and I'm not even kidding. We go the BoJack Horseman route, right? Not like to this extreme. Of course, it's just a dude with a horse head, right? But like, we can give them a horse head. What is the definition of an insect, by the way? What's an anthropod? What's an phylum? I was thinking if centaurs are insects, but they are not. By definition, they are not. But like we could go the BoJack Horseman route, right? We could give them like similar to how the elves look like a little bit catty, well, very much catty. The centaurs could look horsey, right? But yeah, I want to make those two like fucking menaces. I thought about it very hard, because centaurs are like often portrayed as like such an afterthought, and they usually in a setting where they would appear, they would be like absurdly overpowered. But yeah, I think we can, like, I think the only one I'm still debating on, and I'm not sad if they go, are the Nadi. That's the only one I'm like, I don't know. I will keep them in eliminated for now. That's the only one I keep in eliminated for now. Everyone else gets the ESO is not treatment. So this is our final cast of Ancestries, and I think this is a very good cast of Ancestries. I don't know how you feel. If you're like, if you say nah, this is like bad or something like that, then I might reconsider. If we get someone who we could just put in, I am willing also to like just go here and pull someone into, hey, you're back in, you know, you're going to approved. But I think this cast is very strong. We just need to give everyone now a thing. So, what do you want to write? I'm willing to like be open. We can write something else, but I think it's wise to have everyone like at least like a few like words down to know who we can pull for what, right? Because it doesn't make to talk about, for example, factions and city-states of the actual play until we have everyone like somewhat noted down where everyone is at. Gods and religions, we could go onto another religion route, but if we go patron deities, we need to like still wait because the patron deities, they are like still not done until we are done with everyone else. We could make up every patron deity, but we will need to revise one or two as well, due to how we rewrote some of the races of this lore as well. Lore, we can go a little bit deeper. I'm open for everything for this stream. I have like more 3 hours of like just whatever we want to do. We could talk also more about tech. But I feel like most of the stuff that happens in tech, in factions and city-states is what do you mean? You mean like you mean like, for example, an elf who's like, oh, I want to like So at the moment, I'm like also not 100% sure how we do the gods. I like the idea. I like both ideas, right? I like the idea of the more Nordic gods, right? Where you have like, for example, where it's like, oh, you see ravens, that's Odin, right? That's Odin watching. I have this in the setting I am playing on Saturday. The gods do not intervene in the world of the mortals. They cannot, lore-wise, they cannot, because it would open the plane of the void where the undead, where not the undead, where the demons and the devils are. So they cannot intervene, but they send signs, right? So that's how the other setting does it. Where in the setting of there's like the gods who have like agents who are working around the world, but they're not like, except for like talking to very few people, very few chosen ones, they do not like speak to other people, right? Though like in the Friday setting at the moment, I wrote it on purpose that many of the believers of a faith are very gullible by mighty people who claim to have contact with the gods. Gullible is very, very, very a very harsh word, but it fits better than like easily trusting. Because like when they see like a miracle happen or something miracle-like happen, as you may have noticed, many people like, especially like the normal people, if like your characters talk about like something and they witness something, they say, yeah, I'm in contact with X, Y, and Z. They tend to believe that because everyone is very pious and religious and the gods intervene. I'm like for both. I'm also like a very big fan of one of my favorite gods in Pathfinder is and always will be Desna. I love Desna. I feel the idea of Desna is very cool because she's so unique in that setting, right? It's very like the Pantheon does things, but like Desna is just interacting, even though she should not, right? But then again, I'm 100% like a fan of the Olympic gods, like of like demigods walking the earth as like people. But the problem with that is usually like I like them if they're like morally not the cleanest people. I for example, what I saw in like one online play, which I found very interesting, was there were demigods on the planet, and those were like leaders of states because they just took over because they were like fucking overpowered, right? And so you had like these like the Boys-esque moments where like the party would meet these demigods. It's like imagine if you meet like Hercules or Heracles, right? You know you're fucked. Like you're like, oh shit, how do we get out of this, right? If he's on the other side. And that's what I love, by the way. It's like one of the things that I really like about superhero stuff is when you have a setting where you do not follow the Superman of the world, but you're like the B-tier guy who does something that is like getting the attention of the heroes, and then they have an actual hero against them, right? Where it's like, oh shit, man. Like, there's like, we are getting fucked if we stay for like longer, right? Which is why I like these encounters. So like I'm willing to do all of these. Like I'm willing to like be a bit flexible. If we go with the patron deities, right? Where like everyone is like having their patron deity. The patron deity is like watching and being over, even if they don't interact with everyone. Like not every patron deity does interact with anyone else. But I think that for many of them, monotheism has taken over. And for those who do not have monotheism, they usually switch to the unity. I feel like I used my original idea with the patron deities, right? The original idea was, okay, I don't want to make a pantheon because most religions after most religions had their own pantheon, and yes, the Greeks and the Romans had like a very similar pantheon, but like most like multi-deistic pantheons are just like were like giving the gods reasons to exist, and this were like, for example, like, you know, that like Hermes as like the person who, like the messenger of the gods. You have like Zeus doing his stuff. You have Aphrodite, right? Concepts that are not graspable as like put into a concept. But I feel like in a setting that is past ancient Greece and like past Rome, where like more like standardized religions happen, and in a setting that basically went through a cataclysmic event, I think, and I'm like, maybe I'm wrong with this, but I think most religions would like go towards a belief system that there is a caring God about themselves, and basically the patron deities are the monotheistic gods of the equating species, right? So, if we go like real life religions, can I do this? Is it long enough? Yeah, it's long enough. If we go real life religions, right? Like the equivalent of, say, I mean, humans basically pray to like death, right? They to the Grim Reaper, because they think he's like a protector deity. And the next patron deity of LSC trees for the elves is like, oh, you have like, he's the guy who saved us from extinction. So that is like someone who they would worship. And maybe there's like some minor deities below that in their thing. Like how you have like the Trinity in Christianity with like the Holy Spirit, God, and Jesus. And I could see like, but they are all basically one entity, right? Where it's like, oh yeah, all three together are like God with a capital G. And that's how I imagine the patron deities to work. I don't know if everyone has a patron deity at the end, but I could see that most of them have. Again, we still have the unity as like a backup religion, where you just worship like the concepts of like the 5 elements that are apparent in the world, right? Very natural belief system. The old gods, I feel like, is like the old pantheon belief with like the 3. And then like the changeling. We could make another religious system, right? We could make our 9, the 9, or a pantheon that is like a more modern take, which is like, oh, they don't like, of people who do not believe in something else. But I feel like this goes a little bit far religion-wise. I do not want to overwhelm the setting with like 17 religions. Especially because for a player, it's like so hard to keep up. And a GM, like, let's be real. Like, I still need to think about myself. Because I know I love stuff like this. But like, remembering like 8 to 9 religions that work apart from each other is very hard. And like 4 of them is a good number, right? Yeah, that's why. Like, I just don't want to like do the next like, oh, here you have here's the 9, here's this one, here's this one. I did this with my Saturday setting. Yeah, that I could see as well. That the major players have like patron deities, and the others, like, there's some who do not have like patron deities, and those are looking like for the unity. I think that's fine, because at the moment, for example, my Saturday setting, which is also like 100% homebrew, like nobody works how they work as well, except for like how they look. The humans have a pantheon, the elves have a pantheon, the dwarves have a pantheon. Everyone has like a full pantheon, and most gods overlap. But what I did with it was, I don't know if I have everything in my Notion, but I have it for the humans, I think. Saturday campaign, world building. Again, here everything is German, so sorry. Religion, and then we have the 9. The 9 are the first religion I did, right? And what I did with the 9 was, for the humans, I just did it always like this. So we have the 9, those are like for humans, and you have like basically what they call their gods, and then you have like what the ranks are in every religion, and then what the group is called, right? So for example, the 9 have lowest rank is priest, then brother or sister, then high priest, then cardinal, then speaker, and they're like in brotherhoods. That's like the thing. And then like what the gods are. So I like said, okay, the humans grasp hand signs as like an easy thing because we have so expressive hands. That's what they would gravitate towards. So every hand sign is a god, right? And if you with like also the day the holidays down here, and for most gods, I did I do this? No, I couldn't. I couldn't light out of this. When I wrote them, I did like a thing where I said, okay, so this god in this pantheon is the same dude in this other pantheon, right? That's how I handled the religion. So I had like a maximum of 9 gods, and those 9 gods were like resurfacing in every other religion, but with other titles and other domains. Right? So that's how I did it there. But I don't want to do this here. So I think patron deities is good, old gods is good, unity is good, and changeling is good. The old gods is just for like pre-Aether Flood orgs. Maybe some singular orgs still, but there's like very, very old religions, like dead religions basically, right? And those 3 are like the main ones at the moment. I would be willing to put like a 4th actual one in there, but I'm not sure if we do this. Again, lore, we don't need to do at the moment lore. I think we have like, I think 3 big conflicts are enough for like world setting, because it would also overwhelm players. If you go like, okay, I hate it. One of the things I really respect Matthew Mercer for is when he does world building, he does it very thoroughly. But for like, as a GM, when I listen to a Critical Role episode, right, and especially the older ones, it's like Matt going on like long ass tangents about like concepts of the world and how it works and how it was like eons ago, right? A knowledge check from Matt is like a 2-minute monologue, which is crazy that he like with like the few papers he has like on his desk. If you see like the live plays, he has like 5 papers on his desk or something like that he can like get all of that information in his head. He lives for this shit. But Jesus Christ, like I don't want it reminds me of like Final Fantasy 13. That's like what I wanted to say. You start the game and then there are like the LC and the Farsi and the ACDC. They are doing stuff, and this is like the world crystal, and it's corrupted and everything is dying, and also everyone is corrupt, and here's Super Pope. By the way, we have sci-fi cities and flying shit and nature, and the sci-fi cities are like soldiers, and those gunblades are not normal swords, but they're also not gunblades, they're machine guns, and they can be extended to be sniper rifles. And here's Lightning, look at her, right? And Tyr has like stuff going on. It's way too much. It's like Final Fantasy 13 is one of the worst intros I have ever had in a JRPG by far. And that's why I'm like, I don't want to like have like 10 conflicts. If like someone has a small conflict, that should be like settled in their bio for the species and not in the timeline. If we do a giant timeline and like a real time stream where you have like all of the shit on it, then I would agree with this. But right now, right, which is why I don't want to like write more lore at the moment, especially since this like goes into everything else. So, which brings us to what do we write now? Because now I've talked about like 15 minutes about nothing else but what we could potentially write. And the wisest thing is as much as it pains me to say, is writing more species, right? So we're doing that, I think. So the question is, do we need someone for fetchlings? Okay, fetchlings. Let's go fetchling. I had only this as like the main thing, but we can rewrite it. I don't remember either. Maybe you did and I put it in. This is kind of cool, yes. So at the moment I have just only like this. Humans who have peered into Nahul again to meet Saint Amatus again and have left the plane with the mark of death. And then attuned to the plane of life and death and attuned to its gloomy appearance. While they were there, they have taken some of the patents to Aether, making it appear black and white with glowing eyes and cold blue or weak red. And then we have like influence of Nahul allows them to cast shadow magic. I think so too. I was debating on how long a fetchling lives. But yeah, I think so as well. I think those are like the extremists, which is why I'm like, I have to say, if we have fetchlings, right? And fetchlings are rare. Do we make humans uncommon? I don't know. They're birthed from reach into the ethereal plane, where it has become corrupted by aether. You mean they just spawn? I'm thinking. So let's and they're seen as aether vampires because there are rituals for them to prolong their lifespan at the cost of others' color and shadow. I have another idea. So we had the... So let's go quickly into what the humans did, right? Remember about the humans, two things. One thing is they went into Nahul. And when they went into Nahul, they died because they didn't have enough aether to basically cross limbo. What if we have a breach between ethereal plane, Nahul as the plane of death, and the materia which births them. And what they are is a reanimated corpse of a dead human in Nahul. So they just are like a reanimated corpse, basically, given life again, basically like a puppet, which gives them like this like aether appearance, and why they die from like aether, like from like missing aether, and they need aether from like other beings. I quickly need to think, and I need to go to the loop quickly. Are they possessed corpses? Yeah, I was thinking about that. Exactly. And then like we go the aether vampire route of that, like basically possessed human corpses. I will just quickly go to the toilet. I will be back in just a few minutes. Yeah, Give me like a minute. I'm right back. What's my... So, what I wanted to say was, whoop-ala. Now that I'm back. How about we, with like the topic we had before, how about they are possessed corpses? Do possessed corpses sound bad? Like, if we say, instead of like this, again, not every first idea I have is good. Why is it not working? Idea. Nope. And goodbye. If we say, okay, they are, crossing between the planes of Nahul and the ethereal plane, has caused maybe we get the ethereal plane out from Nahul and the material plane. And causes living aether to spill over. And then we have this aether as essence of life inhabits corpses of the dead humans lost in Nahul. Giving them a new existence as a fetchling. Those who are birthed Yeah, I think dying in the realm of the dead is just like you go like you're just. I mean, imagine a little bit like actually Dragon Ball-esque, where you just disappear, or maybe if you're like dead, maybe you just stay in your corpse. You go like into sleep mode. By this process known as blessed by Saint Amatus. And once these Fetchlings enter the material plane. Yeah, I think that like so what I'm thinking right now is exactly what you wrote. They die there, they're gone basically. They are like basically trapped in Nahul and cannot leave, right? And so once they get the aether of like something living, it's basically like you have like a dead plant that's like just gone dry, and if you give it water, it all of a sudden lives again. That's how I like, because like the root of the thing is still alive. So basically 90% of my plants. And so if I imagine it just like you gain life again, and after you do this, your entire existence evolves a level further, right? You're did we have Duskwalkers or did we not have Duskwalkers? Didn't we kill the Duskwalkers? We killed Duskwalkers. What were Duskwalkers again? They were the Shadowplane guys, right? Yeah, I think so as well. I think so as well, yeah. Let's try it like this. Humanity. No. Many humans. Again, we're doing just like a little bit of like just general write-up. We're not doing the flow text. The flow text is like something we're doing later on. At the moment, it's important for us to have like the info, right? Not what how it is written, the info. We need to understand it and just put it into like text, right? Many humans lack the fortitude to survive the passing through Nahul. Dying in the plane of death means not the end of your existence. It just means you go into a stasis called nothingness. I think that's like the nihilistic approach, right? And then like there's the corpses, right, of the bodies of the humans. Fetchling being infused with living ether, right? Aether. So now we have like those are both known they are known as like blessed by Saint Amatus. Exactly. So I wanted to get to that before we did the first part. I feel like what the fetchling should be is, since they lost their lives, quote unquote, their life essence on the plane of death, and they just get like fed in like a body that is claimed by death, Aether, that like the Aether they gain just keeps them alive, and they bleed out the Aether to the living world as they did to the world of the dead, right? So yeah, I quote you on that. Their bodies are in constant flux as the Aether residue they are made of gradually dissolves and is reclaimed by the planet. This condition so basically the Shinigami eyes, but in reverse, right? I think weeks is a little too little. I'm thinking about this. You know what? Let's go with weeks. Everyone else lives for forever, right? Let them be the what's the Eintagsfliege in English? Mayflies, thank you. Yeah, make them the mayflies of the setting, right? How long they will live for. And starts to worsen outside of the plane of Nahul. Right? I think it would be not prudent to say that their condition worsens outside of the plane of Nahul. Not the degradation. They die also in Nahul. They would die there, right? But the Aether they need exponentially increases over time to survive is a thing that should be like stopped in Nahul. But they cannot maintain life there because there's no living ether there. Right. It can only be found on the material plane. Because that's why Saint Amatus is like claiming the dead, because he wants the Aether from them to upkeep like the plane of death, to keep it like stable and safe. Which is why none of the humans, or like most of the humans, just flat out died because they do not have Aether, like by birth, right? They just don't have it standard wise. Yeah, that's what I imagine as well. When they rise in Nahul. They have to scramble to find a way to feed themselves. By traveling to Eziko and feeding themselves and consuming aether from a living being or otherwise viable source. Fetchlings get a very bad reputation because of this, but rarely live long enough for it to matter. The average fetchling dies within weeks to within a few weeks up to 2 months. Yeah, that's like the thing, right? They should be like very much like, oh yeah, this is fine, right? I feel like a fetchling should be like, except if they're like starving, very chill people. Like they drink a coffee and just say, wow, that was a great experience, right? To their short lives, they savor each fleeting moment, squeezing out every last drop of enjoyment. I think that is kind of cool. And then like we can like mix it up a bit. Now another question is, we now know how like the average fetchling works, right? Now we go into the next questions we always have. I think we keep out of the idea pool, we keep the how they look. We keep these. Because these fit. Because fetchlings have like shadow magic stuff. And also very good stealth. Which also fits very well into like vampire stuff, right? They need to have good stealth. How about just doing this? What do they do in which society? Where are they settled? What do they do? Do they sleep? Do they need sleep? Do they sleep out of habit? Is the next question. Because they were humans, right? Or they are humans. They are just Steve who like woke up after being dead for like a few months or years. Does something like a Death Knight sleep? I'd give into the Elven Trance from the NDA. Have to rest due to the mechanics of the day. I do not see when the... Yeah, I think so as well. I think the automatons have that, right? Automatons. How do they rest? They have this just with the shorter duration. So we say instead of sleeping, the fetchling enters a meditative state of mind, simulating equating to sleep. But what do they do? What do they do in their meditative state? They stabilize the loss of Aether, right? Otherwise, they would get fatigued because their Aether is just not like fully there. That would make the most. They need to stabilize their bodies. Yeah, their bodies. That's better. Yeah. If they would not, they would get fatigued like most mortals. Yeah. You mean like when they move and stuff like that? I think it would be nice that you actually see the influence of Nahul over them, which is why I said they get like this like gloomy appearance, like they also look like, right? Where it's like, okay, and pure light, you would you can see the Aether flaking off them in forms of slight shadows. This effect increases at places of strong Aether influence. So basically, like when you get like close to Aether, you would see it like more distinctly, because the Aether is just like collecting around it, right? And now we need to still think about, okay, when did the first fetchlings happen? Not necessarily like, oh, this is the first fetchling that existed. Maybe they were there all the time, but now that like Nahul is the plane of the humans, it's just only humans that become them. Maybe there were like some fetchlings of like other folk, like orc fetchlings and stuff like that. who accidentally existed. But when in the timeline do they show up? Because the humans was it shift? Yes. The humans, and I did it wrong. We need to go to this. We have 290 BAF, right? That's where the humans. Wouldn't humans simply dominate the physical dead bodies of the plane of death? Yeah, I think so. I think the humans would just like take basically dominate the number of physical dead bodies there, because like again, the humans were nearly like extinct due to their moonfall event, but after that happened, they just all fled there, right? Yeah, exactly. That's like the thing. They were just outnumbered, and then like. And again, since our fetchlings die very quick, the few that were there are just not noteworthy, right? Because some of them, if you basically, like, the humans know how to leave because Saint Amatus showed them, right? They were like, yo, this is the way out. Here's a tip. Here's the way to Eziko. Have fun, right? So, all of these random guys that were like randomly accessing Nahul do not know the way out. So they would just become fetchlings at some point, maybe, due to an event, live for 2 weeks because they do not know how to get out and just die there, right? And I don't want to be the person who writes a setting. This is like something I really do not like. It's like I hate it when a setting, say for example Warcraft, right? Just drinking one sip. When a setting like Warcraft does a Garona half Orcan, and does like the one half orc in history, right? It's never happened before, but this is the exception, and she's a fucking badass. And I hate that because this is like not the first time, and there's so many writers who fall into this trap of like I'm looking into what I can put as a soundtrack on. So this. I hate it when writers do this as like the main crutch for new interesting characters, to say, oh, we have these established rules, but there's this exceptional character that happened, right? Like, for example, oh, this is the only orc that is fetchling, and this is the only fetchling that has lived for 200 years because he knows how to hack the system, right? And then like, this is the only vampire that is an elf, and this is the only, like, I hate that when like a setting just overflows the characters, the main characters, with, yo, this is just the guy who is like against the established rules that we set up like ages ago. Though Garona was not against the rules per se, but like, it's weird that it never happened again, right? But yeah, so the humans appear here. I also have like the idea. I was thinking about death worship as sorry for like going off topic. I was like going for death worship, and maybe, and it's like very, very maybe, actually the Minotaurs. Either the Minotaurs, or what I also thought, the Lizard Fogonagaji. I like them very much in the idea, in like the mind space of, hey, They hate humans because they got their shtick stolen. Stolen, yes, thank you. So, did the fetchlings happen in the in-between of this? Like, from here to here? The first fetchlings? I would say so, right? I think the Aether Flood should not have cost the fetchlings. Or should they? Because let's see it realistically. So, on the one hand, if the Aether Flood also costs the fetchlings, then everything is like so much feels like, oh, only the Aether Flood costs everything, right? And the fetchlings enter everything. Yeah, exactly. That's what I wanted to say. On the other hand, the Aether Flood is just like everywhere is Aether, and so like the material plane gets so thin with the plane of death that you have this like crossover there, right? The in between gets like very thin. So I'm like agreeing with the solution that you proposed of like, yo, fetchlings started appearing a few years after the humans stranded on Eziko, but only sparsely. Sparsely is written like this, right? Once the Aether Flood happened, they appeared en masse. When a fetchling dies. Question. When a fetchling dies in this setting and it knows I have 3 days to live, right? Because they know how to live. So I am the fetchling now. I know I have 3 days to live. I go to a wizard, and that wizard opens, because he's like a high-level wizard, right? Opens a plane to Nahul, and I die there again. What happens then? Can I be refetchlinked again? No, right? Because we said you dissolve over time. You basically fall apart. Yeah, okay. That is the best idea, right? Because we could have gone like either the route of like, okay, you die instantly, or you go the route of the coolest guys in World of Warcraft. No poop July. What the hell? If now again, some amount of arrives to kick their ass. Yeah, I think so. That like, one of Warcraft ethereals, right? I think the ethereals are one of the coolest designs in all of WoW. And I wish we would have gotten to play them. But I imagine them like if they fall apart, right? That they just fall apart, not like as like bandaged guys, but like as they just fall apart, and this is like the skin then, right? But yeah, I guess it's cooler if they just disintegrate, right? So when fetchling dies again, they is it disintegrate or disintegrate? Disintegrate, right? they arrive on Nahul again, Saint Amatus will personally locate them and reap them. And I think that we don't need to say much more about them, right? They are there, they are doing their thing, they will be very undercover, and they are assisting the humans in their endeavors, right? After humanity freed itself of its shackles by the Orong dynasty, the fetchlings started oh, these guys, yeah. They look fucking haunting, right? Living alongside other humans. Not only to visit old friends and family, to spend some time with them, but also to keep some of their humanity their humanity alive, right? So I feel like they would gravitate towards like living in human societies in general. Like if there's like a human city or something like that, or like a human village, they just would chill there. And the humans would be very cool with them, right? Because for them, they are like the coolest guys around. Humans live in no, humans have high respect for fetchlings in general, while the fetchlings are envious. Are they envious? No, they're not envious. Fetchlings are nostalgic for the life they once lived. I think that's the best we can put it into words, right? So basically what I want to say is like the humans just think, whoa, these guys are badass, and the fetchlings are like, yeah, you're lucky that you're alive still. It's like a nice existence to like not know when you die, right? Because that's like a little bit psychological terror, right? Much like the humans, fetchlings assisted in the conflicts at hand. Helping in the heritage War and the War of Unity. I think they're so linked to the humans, I don't need to like say, okay, the fetchlings had like a little thing outside of humanity where they were doing like their own thing. I don't think that would be the case. They're like so intertwined, right? Nowadays, fetchlings live yeah, I think they live in parallel to humans. Because they would be the only ones who would not be like scared of them, right? Because they like are aether vampires in theory. Metropolis is in smaller communities consisting of both fetchlings and humans. And they tend to get their aether from living beings inside these cities, taking on jobs to either eliminate people or creatures, to satiate their thirst for ether. Yeah, elves must be really miffed at them. Humans let's say like this, due to their harboring of the fetchlings, elves tend to be very angry, maybe critical, against the humans, and of course the fetchlings alike. Is anyone else really pissed about them? It would be only the elves, right? Because the elves just exist, and like it's like so funny because the elves got just like fucked over by fate, right? They would go to like Electries and say, yo god, they are right there, why don't you do anything? And Electries is like, well, they didn't genocide each other over this. They live in harmony. Works. Get good scrubs. I feel like Electries, how do the nature guys feel about them sucking out the life out of living things? Yes. I was thinking about like how the nodes feel about this. The Colo, sorry. Many critics come from those communities. Yeah, this is good. It's from Magic the Gathering. That's a good artwork. We're putting this in the fetchlings. It did not work. Why does it not work? Give me link. Why? Oh, okay. Do I really need to save every fucking image, dude? Okay. We just put it in. It's by Ryan Yee. Great artist, actually. Why not actually? He does like banger art. I think he does like most of the D&D art as well, like a lot of D&D art. And like his work is like always very good. We put them in here. I like the idea of this image. Many critics come from those communities that cherish Aether in its natural form, like the Colo or the modern orcish communities. They think that this form of life is not natural and should be purged. I think they're like very against this. And I think we can fire this off. They are just like a side human, right? I think fetchling is like nice enough. We don't need to go too much more into fetchlings. I think they're nice because they're so concise, which is why they are together. It would be so funny to have this and then have like an elf in this campaign and have like the fetching Dhampir, the new necromancer class, and then you have like the literal like death embodiment, and then you have like an elf there, and the elf is like, what the fuck? Why do humans get this? And then the elf god just like, the sky opens and Nelson from The Simpsons comes there and like says, ha ha, and then the elf's just like sad. You can, with the fetchling, like actually with the humans and the fetchling, you can like build a very cool like World of Warcraft Death Knight, like a necromancer play guy with like champion and then like necromancer. I think you could build something very cool with that. So, who do we want to write? Next idea. What is the next idea? Give me a next idea, dude. Can we send lizard folk into the desert instead of the swamps? Yes, we can. We are free to put the lizard folk wherever we want. I just like the lizard folk in the swamps because I like crocodiles and alligators. They're fucking cool. But we can put them anywhere you want. We have absolute freedom here. This is a nice thing about the absolute homebrewed stuff. We want to do the lizard folk as the death nomads. Do the lizard folk have the same shit as the lizard folk in 5e? Like actually, in 5e, with the elven god, okay? So to just like say why I'm asking the 5e question is, in 5e, lizard folks can take a feat at level 4 instead of ability increase that allowed them to improvise weapons, to cut like weapons out of the bones of the deceased and make like tools and weapons from this. And what was cool was in a short campaign where I died very early with my lizard folk. Sadly, he was just murdered. If we would have survived, the DM said, yeah, I give you like bonuses for like certain bone weaponry, right? So I was like a monk who would like build the staves and stuff like that out of the bones of the fallen enemies. And can the lizard folk do stuff like that as well still? And not like to the crazy regard, but like use bones for shit? Because that would be like very fitting for this. You think that should be the lizard folk? Because the lizard, yeah, I agree that it should be someone. The question is the lizard folk, because in at least back in good old June, I think, when we rode the dragons, we were thinking about saying, okay, the lizard folk are basically our dragonborn, right? Not 100% our dragonborn, but they could take the dragon blood heritage, right? Like here, that one, the scalies, and that it like they are like dragon pound. That does not prohibit them of worshipping death, by the way, because the dragons are also very, very, very necromancy heavy in the setting. So we could just put the like we could just still fill this role and have the lizard folk be the death worshippers. This is like not a problem at all. The question is, do we go the angle of, yeah, they worship death, they're pissed about everything, but they still like the dragons? Desert nomads. East. Worship death. They feel trained by the elven god Electries for messing with the cycle of death and undeath. They heavily employ where they heavily employ undead to protect, build, and carry their burdens. Not even in death does duty end. I think we go like a little bit like harder than the Empire of Man, right? I think they would like be like having a caravan of like undead desert beings like pulling their carriages and stuff like that. Very much like cliched witch doctor shit, right? The death worship came about in ancient times because of the extreme day and night cycle of their desert homes, where either extreme is equally hostile to life, and many weaker community members die of heat or cold. Those who died were ritualistically stripped of their flesh and would become bony servants to the community. I think this is like what I want to do. I don't know if they are again cannibals, if they eat each other, but they definitely like make them like bony servants. Because let's be real, in the desert, if you would like revive a zombie, they would dry out extremely fast, they would stink as shit, and they would just put like the entire community through sickness. So you do not want a zombie, you want a skeleton. The skeleton makes more sense. You can rinse and like clean the bone, and then you have like a pristine skeleton guy with you. Like for like survival purposes, a skeleton is always better than a zombie. Desert glass. Great sand sea glass is an impactite. Something like lacaterite found in areas of the Sahara, the deserts of eastern Libya and western Egypt. Fragments of desert glass can be found over areas of tens of square kilometers. Like obsidian, it was named and used to make tools during the Pleistocene. Pleistocene, right? The origin of desert glass is uncertain. Meteoric origins have long been considered possible, and recent research links the glass to impact features such as zircon breakdown, vaporized quartz, and meteoritic metals, and to an impact crater. Some geologists, based on a widely reported 2006 study by the Sandia National Laboratories, associated the grade with radiative melting from meteoric making analogs to trinitite created from sand exposed to thermal radiation and of a nuclear explosion. Libyan desert glass has been dated as having formed about 29 million years ago. Analysis of samples with electron blah 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 blah. I'm just skipping now. To spare the Google, thank you. Would be interesting. But why would they do this if they worship death and undeath? If they like both? That's I like the idea, but how about like I like them as like, yo, you want to talk to Uncle Steve, he's there, right? Or we do a better thing. They use, basically what they do is you die. Oh, that is what you mean. They build their own golems out of this. Okay, I thought they would just like entomb them, really. Like, that is kind of cool, yeah. To make their undead more durable, they would encase the skeleton in desert glass to make them more durable, and also to decorate them. So what I'm thinking is like the Egyptian mummy, but with like stony appearance, right? So you would like actually like that is like a very normal thing to like decorate your undead. You know, Grandma Hilda, she just like gets like the treatment of like, oh, I'm doing like the cool ass on her leg or something like that. Write a 6 and a 7 on her back. Put death or like put love and pain on the knuckles. You know, I feel like that is what they would actually do. That seems like very yeah. They want to bling out like they're undead, right? So like, having an army of the dead, quote unquote, which is like very little because they're like desert nomads, so their numbers are not that huge for survival purposes. But like having like your own like army or like your squad of like blinged out dead people would be like something that they would respect, right? Decoration and outfitting of undead servants was a sign of power and influence. I feel like if you're like that into necromancy, we don't have a volcanic area, right? Like, I've never marked something as like, oh, this is volcanic, right? Why did I go away from? Is it for? Let's get this. This is what I want to open. So we could say, I just said like by default they are from the east, right? So we could put like a volcanic area in this like desert strip over here. We can like widen out this a little bit and just put like a volcanic area here. The thing is, do they like actually do they magic up this stuff? Because they are necromancers by trade, right? So what they would do is the problem is, if we say they can use magics to save themselves from death, then they would not become necromancers because their numbers would not dwindle fast enough that the corpses would be like enough to have like your little undead squad, right? But then again, if they have the higher numbers, like if they live like from like in a region where like the heat and stuff is like dangerous and they scavenge, they would not have the numbers to produce undead, right? Like both are like equally meh. So I'm thinking about what is the best solution here, because if they can conjure up like heat and stuff, then we have less deaths. Ew, there's a mistake here. There's probably so many like writing mistakes in here, but hey, like grammar. I need to think for a second. So let's say like this. They're in a volcanic desert, right? Since they're learned magics are based around life and death and what comes after, lizard folk need to scavenge for their materials and food, because that would make them already like adept craftsmen, and that would like go into they know how to do shit, which is why they decorate their stuff, right? They know like craftsmanship. Also, again, it gives the high numbers of death, like of dead people. So like the undead stay in the family for like generations, right? Yeah, nowadays they should like definitely they are many lizard folk are renowned jewelers. Not only because of their long traditions in making decorations for their dead, but also their expert knowledge in materials and how to work them. Okay, that is for nowadays. Now we're still in like, okay, what is this guy about in general, right? So we know that they are basically the Tomb Kings of Warhammer. Okay. Why would I not watch the video? What did you text me? Did you send me a new message? Because I did not see if you did. You're on the top of my chat right now. I don't see your message. Weird. Doesn't matter. Now next one. In ancient times, or like, okay. I was like confused, like what the hell was happening? In times during the Orcish reign over the planet, lizard folks were mainly left alone, since they had not much value to the Orcish dynasties. One reason being that the lizard folk were not compatible when it came to breeding, and also because their necromancy was a danger to orcish nobility, to orcish, well, it's not nobility, right? To orcish, to the dynasties when it would inevitably get into wrong hands. I think the orcs were like, okay, let's not touch these desert dwellers. Let them just walk the fucking desert if they want to. Because if we subjugate them and one of them teaches like the other slaves how to do necromancy, we have a giant ass problem, right? Like those fucking lizards, they are crafty bitches, and I like from like an orcish dynasty perspective, imagine you have like a lot of like subjugated species, right? You have like the Kolo working the mines, and then like the fucking lizard folk goes in, like Dio walking towards Jotaro with like exactly, but imagine this like on a larger scale, even like they would just walk with their like grimoire of like, or like whatever they have, the stone plates with the summon undead spell, right? They would just walk like Dio into like the room of the slaves, teach everyone the fucking level 1 spell, and all of a sudden you have an undead uprising in your dynasty. Also, the problem with smaller dynasties trying to the idea of them like the idea of like, yo, we're the delegation, fuck you, and they just murder themselves. There was also the problem with smaller dynasties trying to subjugate the lizard folk regardless, while the delegations of these lizard folk would commit suicide to rise up again as undead to wreak havoc. Like I think like there's like some little snotty pig boy. They are that one JoJo stand from Golden Wind that attacks them on the plane. Yeah, they're like what's the stand called? It's here BIG, Notorious BIG. That's the stand. Where like he just walks towards the plane and gets shot, and that's it, and then he responds. I feel like they would do this, yeah. And I think I can see like a snot-nosed like boar boy, right, being like, let's get them anyway. Let's subjugate these lizard folk. They are on my dynasty's borders, within my dynasty's borders. Yes, let's subjugate them. And the lizard folk's like, yo, you're gonna regret that, and just slits his fucking throat because they don't give a shit. And then they just get reanimated again. And then the other orcs are like, oh dude, let's not try that. It's not worth the hassle. It's not worth the effort. During the Heritage War. Every Tuesday with these guys. Heritage War. What do they do during the Heritage War? So we have like everything basically like prehistoric, then the part of the orcish uprising. Again, stuff that comes in between we can always add later, but like just so we have like the general shit. Heritage War. What do we do with the Heritage War? Do they partake? Do they do anything during the global liberation from the orcs? Do some of these guys... I just... They attack the orcs to recover the bodies of the dead buried in orcish mass graves for their slaves. Yeah, I was thinking, do they, like, revive the orcs en masse? And there's, like, people that are, like, actually thinking, yo, they are enslaving the orcs as revenge for us all. So they get, like, whitewashed, even though they're, like, fucking a death cult. I agree with, like, they attack the orcs to recover the bodies of their dead buried in orcish mass graves for their entourage. We're not using the word slave with these guys. They're like servants, entourage, right? Stuff like that. What we are doing is, I think it would be so fucking funny when they do that shit, right? They definitely, they gave the basics of necromancy to those enslaved who were willing to learn by handing out simple spell scrolls and the like. I think what happens is they just ignore them. They ignore the problem. Then, like, the global revolution happens. The orcs are just panicking. So the lizard folk say, well, we are like opportunistic people, right? We're just like seeing this. We can get our bodies back. By the way, we have like this whole ass of like spell scrolls here. How about we just give them to everyone who wants to have like an undead body, right? Let's double the body count. Like everyone who died in this mass grave, hey, just get another guy. Just get another guy for a few minutes. It would be funny. And then like you have like the fucking like cinematic of like Sindragosa in like Wrath of the Lich King with the undead army. That's like what I imagine this to be. Like the orcs are just sitting like there's like this like small ass dynasty and the lizard folk. Do you miss your mommy? Do you want to meet her again? Exactly. And every fucking like enslaved person has like another undead body, so they just doubled their size and they could not defend against it. I feel like this would be like such a spiteful thing to do. And they see like, yeah, this is normal, right? And like every like paladin of like a deity who's against undead is like, oh my fucking god, what is happening there? They overran their the dynasties within their lands with the help of a slave revolt turned necromancer revolution. Like this is like how I actually imagine it. Like, oh god, the slaves are rebelling. They're looking outside the windows. Why do I hear like the clicking of bones? What is happening out there? Who are these lizards? Were those the guys? Like some August is sitting there, right? It's like, were those the guys that we said we don't enslave because of necromancy? Yes. They usually have like 2 or 3 like skeletons with them, right? Yes. So when I look outside my window, why are there like 50,000 people, half of which are like missing like facial structure, and they're like, whoops. After their victory, their lands were untouched by Orcish influence until the end of the war, while those interested and talented enough were taught in lizard folk necromancy and sent away after training. I think they would just like be like, okay, you learned our necromancy, now piss off, right? You know how our thing works, spread undeath, have fun, but we are traveling without like a bunch of like gnomes and shit. Like they're like the main reason why like there's like many necromancers, right? Why there's like death cults and shit like that. They're like, yeah, go home and be a family man and maybe take some undead with you. Here's some bones. Have fun. Yeah, I can see that. I can see that. And then like they just like teach everyone who they freed who was like, oh yeah, you're good at necromancy. How about you want to learn it? We are teaching you the basics, but like once you learn it, you need to spread it and just like go somewhere else because this is our lands and we don't want like to have like too many necromancers running around here. We are doing our necromancy, you do your necromancy somewhere else, right? And like the people who were like saved by them, they were like, yo dude, that is like kind of practical. Like, let's be real. I sound very, very lawful evil. And I know we have like this like familiar bond with the corpses of our loved ones. But like if we could do necromancy, like if like the magic of necromancy would be real, we would not at all find it evil. %, I believe, if necromancy is not trapping a soul in a body, but like just reanimating a skeleton like a golem, like a robot, there's no difference between the robot and the skeleton. That sounds very, very mean-spirited, but I am 100% honest that like between the bones of a dead human, because for me it's just an object, like the bones of like a dead person at some point are just an object. They're not the person anymore. If I would go to like a grave and just like, or like find the bones of a person uncovered in like a grave, I would not say, oh, that's Steve. I would say that's a skeleton, right? And I feel like necromancy, that just revives it and puts like the general idea of a human shape. Because like if I imagine like magic, if we would have magic in real life, right? Which we do not because it's a made up concept. But it would work very similar to Frieren, I think, where like Frieren says you need to imagine how a spell works. Like it needs to make sense to you so you can learn it. And I feel like that's how like necromancy works. Because like there's no difference to me between like the bones of a person and like a bunch of rocks. So in my mind, necromancy could just be like a clay figure, but or like something similar to bones, right? But since like necromancy says it needs to be undead bones and it behaves like a human, that makes it work, right? So like I like Friren's magic system in that regard very much. But yeah, getting back to this. Then we come to the next big event, Aether Flood. Once the Aether Flood started, the lizard folk made for the volcanoes. To reach higher ground. Even though the volcanoes yeah, the Aether should erupt from the volcanoes. I was not thinking straight. Sorry. They lose their desert when the nearby volcanoes erupt with Aether and lose many many people and undead alike. Most of those that is a cool idea, yeah. They used their undeads as sacrifices to build platforms and high grounds and offer them to the gods' blood. They were subsequently saved by the No. It's like so. What Aether is physical. Like there's like the Aether radiation and like Aether like particles in the air, right? Like anything that like basically gives off something like this. But the Aether itself from the core is a liquid, so it's like liquid essence of the gods. Which is why the flood is like a physical thing. Which is why the Kolo are able to put it back in. It's not spiritual per se, it's a force of nature. It's definitely something that is physical and can be blocked off, because that's how like people survived, right? And that's how they use the liquid Aether to power up like stuff, because like we use liquid Aether later on as like power for batteries and stuff like that, which is kind of dangerous, but they just live with that, right? Just like how electricity works. Electricity in theory is also very dangerous, but yeah. Why the people, they originally saved during the Heritage War as a thank you for their outstanding services. I think they just like used the undead to like block off the flood, and then like the other like necromancers that were like sitting on the continent just came to like assist them, like this like amalgamation of like Kolo and other like slaves, right? Later on they would found the city of what do we call one of the flying cities? Do we make one of them the Necromancer City? At the moment we have Garden, Remedy, and Haven. Do we do the shithole of Remedy or like Garden? Or do we make a new one? I'm thinking. Yeah. Guess where the death guys went? Would it be Remedy? Straight to the doctors, right? Yeah. Found the city of Remedy, which would be the third metropolis to be raised into the sky. I like them that they are like that they're like morally very bad people, right? But they do not shitty things necessarily, right? We cannot save him, but we can make it so he won't miss work. Since we said Remedy will be the shithole, I can imagine that they actually have like fucking or did we say Garden will be the shithole? One of those was like the absolute shithole, and I can see them like having like actually contractual work later on, where they're like, yeah, your contract does not like how in Germany it's like usually a contract ends with can end with death or will end with death, and they don't have that, right? In like the company setting. I think in the Bürgerliche Gesetzbuch it doesn't. Oh my god. Okay, I thought I'd find the article there. It's like the only flying metropolis that is like kinda okay to live in, or where it's like okay to live in as a normal person. Is it just like Haven? Like to be poor in Haven is shit, but like to be normal or higher is just better, and like to be rich of course is good. Is there like the one that is like a D tier shithole where it's like nice to live in, but like not everyone is allowed in, like the Switzerland? Yeah. Do we have like the Switzerland where everyone says it's like kind of cool? The other shitholes learn from Haven's mistakes. Yeah, I think the other ones just got worse, right? Where like everyone has like too much freedom in Haven, which is why I want to set the campaign in Haven. Actually, I think the other ones are a bit too extreme, right? Like if you start a campaign, like if you would play a campaign, would you rather start in like Haven to have like the bandwidth of the setting, Or do you have like, would you want to start in like a shithole where like everything is awful? You play the campaign, everyone is talking about how nice Haven is, and you go to Haven and it's like, wow, it's worse than we have it nowadays. I mean, we have like 60s workers stuff here, which is nice and all, but kids die in the mines. Yeah, it's pretty much like Gab, right? Wait, let's do like quickly War of Unity. During the War of Unity, they would stand with their allies and keep the tactics of old, where a dead soldier is still a soldier at heart, and keep their position safe with numbers. Though they were teachers in the arts of life and death, many newborn were working many newborn were working on their skills as craftsmen, because necromancy was not the only trade, was not the signature trade for the lizard folk of the future. Oh yeah, I like that. During the War of Unity, there were numbers. They actually improved their standing globally, and thus the reputation of necromancy. We never talked about, and then we go into like nowadays, right? Then like many are like this work for them. Many others still dabble in necromancy to reinforce the workforce in lizard folk owned companies, guilds and workshops. Necromancy, yeah, that is true. By turning, I forgot this one, turning the dead before they could be mutated by the changeling. they also compete with the orcs for their medical skills, since their knowledge of anatomy put them in a good position to enter the field of medicine. And that's basically what they do, right? We never talked about how lizard folk society is structured. They're nomads, right? Are they just like the biggest necromancer is the coolest? Is it like this? I mean, it's very much implied, right? Decorating and outfitting is like sign of influence. We had it at the start that like basically like the more you have and the cooler they look, the better you are standing in like the nomad group. But do we just like say this, or do we just like nomadic society naturally limited lifespan and probably would not have grown too large before people started running off on their own, right? That is true. So probably they just would like split off when they just have enough and build a new family, right? Like, I think they would just like not stick long enough together to have like a real societal thing. And they just found like their way together when the Aether Flood happened. So yeah, we're leaving out like who's like the leader in a pack or something like that. I think it was like, actually, I can't imagine then. What did they eat? So this is like the one thing I am not 100% sure of, because I feel like when they're necromancers, again, I feel like they're the kind of nomads who actually would either, I don't see them as like raising livestock. can you just like picture it by yourselves? They're like so different, like from like a farming life. They're like so far away from that because they have like so many other crafts they do. I feel like they're more talented in hunting, especially if you have undead slaves who do the huntings, right? And I would say for that they do like hunt actual dinosaurs. They hunt other reptiles. Because if I remember correctly, don't the lizard folk get the reptile speech thing? Where like the equivalent of the gnomish like burrow speech and stuff like that, where you can talk to reptiles. Yeah, exactly. That's like what I imagine, right? That they like get this giant ass caravan of like dead animals. Which is why I'm like still debating if they eat like if they because we said like at the start I wrote like those who died were ritualistically stripped of their flesh and would become bony servants to the community. I feel like I don't know if I want to make them cannibals, because let's be real, a species that could have cannibalism. Yeah, reptile speaker, right? So they would like keep. They would maybe do both, right? Are they the people who have like the hunting velociraptors and then eat them? They're like basically like having like they're like dachshund, and then like the dachshund, like when it gets old enough they eat it. Because, like, yeah, exactly. That you would not keep, if you're a necromancer, I 100% believe this. You would not, if you want to keep everybody, like every skeleton, like, if you want to make every family member an undead until they serve their purpose and fall apart naturally, you would never keep the flesh on the bone, except if you embalm them and make them mummies, because zombies are sickness monsters. They're like fucking dead meat, and if you're nomadic, you just like make your entire party sick by just not stripping on Gisela of the flesh. It's like you would strip them of their flesh. You would repurpose this, make the bone clean, and then revive them. Especially if they will use the glass, right? The desert glass. To like keep the bone alive for longer, because at some point they would fall naturally apart, because, well, the technology is not there to like keep the meat from rotting by freezing it or something like that. So yeah, their flesh was used to their flesh was the flesh of the yeah, I think so as well. The flesh of the dead was used to as bait for their prey, while the best of the hunting animals of the group, consisting of birds of prey and raptors, were fed meat as well to keep their spirits strong. Those hunting animals send in the raptors, raise the dead, and then and the raptors send in the first wave of lizard folk warriors and raise those, then overrun the enemies with the death knights and necromancers, bring them up the rear. Yeah, it's like basically how the vampires in Total War basically not Total War, Warhammer basically behave, right? You have like the husks, you send them in, and then you send in like your second wave of like the revived people and the cavalry, and then you send your next wave in, and the last wave is just like your most powerful necromancers reviving everyone, right? Hunting animals were raised as undead as well to preserve the strength of the group. I think that's like implied, where they are like, okay, they are, the lizard folk were like fucking, like, I like them that they're like just a few people who are like such menaces because nobody gave a fuck about them, right? They were just there and like were like, it's not how we wrote the Kitsune at the start, where I said I don't like them, where they were like isolationists. They were not isolationists. They were just there, and everyone said, let's not fuck around with them because they're like a hassle. And that hassle just is like a wave that is like just like getting bigger and bigger and bigger until it's a tsunami and nobody can stop it. But they do not care for that, right? Lizard folk are a disease left to fester in the Orcish Empire. Yeah, they're like just a disease, right? They're like, oh, I have this open wound and I'm not doing anything because it would be a hassle to go through the doctor, right? It's very, very cool how we wrote those. It is also a nice twist on them that they're like more like the Tomb Kings. Well, they're not the Tomb Kings, right? They don't have pyramids, but yeah. I really like them. Where do we put them, by the way? What rarity are they? I would say uncommon. Yeah, then we're pretty much in agreement. So, we have round about 40 minutes left. We can either start something new or we can do something else. Speaking of Tomb Kings. Yes. Where do you want to go with this? I think so, right? We can put them as the poison guys. Oh, okay. Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah. You know what? It's so funny. Tools of Doom is like such a dude. It's crazy. It's crazy how you like pull these out of nowhere, dude. You're like unlocking things that I've seen like 20 years ago or so, dude. Oh my god. I was like, Tools of Doom says something, and then I saw the guy, and then I was like, oh, I know who that is. So we need to. So do we do Nagashi? Is that what we are doing? I'm willing to go Nagashi. We will just probably start one, and then I will. I feel like those contrast nicely with the lizard folk. Yeah. So let's do like this, Nagashi. And then we do brackets, no human form. So we instantly see that. Okay. So how do we start this? What do the Nagashi do? They contrast with the Blizzard folk. We want to have them as a contrast. What do the Nagashi believe in, and what did they do prehistorically? When like what is like their origin? We have Nagani were an opposing empire of the of slavers who were in open warfare with the orcs during the early days of the empire. Okay. Can we? I like the idea of the. Let's do like this. Opposing empire of slavers to the orcs in the early days of the dynasties. What happened before? Because with the orcs, we know a lot of stuff that happened before this step, right? And with many other people, we know also like how they started out. Like, we don't need to do the evolutionary first step, right? We're like, oh, they evolved from something over like billions of years and then they happened. But what was their first societies like? Did they have a speciality? Mm-hmm. What do we call that deity? Give me a good name. We don't call it Sithis, but we need something snaky. Snake deity. I'm thinking. I don't know why Leviathan instantly came into my head, but I don't want to have Leviathan. First question. Is there someone who comes into mind? For example, would it be sensical that that one of the others that already exist have this? I think it would have disappeared entirely. I think War in Heaven style, yeah. I think that their deity died at some point. And the dying words were they need to like take matters into their own hands, and that's why they started to like build an empire. Or they're like or like something like a mysterious message was left with like basically like you're your own gods now, and that is what they took like way too literally. I feel like this is what happened, right? Second idea. Now here it comes. The deity grew too greedy and gorged on Aether. The first even turned into the core of the changeling. So the Nagashi god is basically the changeling, the origin of the changeling. I like that idea. What can we do with that? I like that. I like that very much. Served a patron deity called the Great Devourer in their own tongue. This god wanted, not wanted, this god commanded the Nagashi to sacrifice lesser beings into the ritual pits. So basically what they did is like they just shoved like people and animals into like giant ass pits that went into this like inactive volcanoes basically. And that fed like the core in the center of the world, right? Is it a sea serpent? Was the changeling a sea serpent? Yeah. I like the idea that they is the ancient god the mirror belt and not the changeling itself? Did they come from the mirror belt? Are they like one of the things that lived on the islands there? It makes sense for snake people, right? Did they just like sink everyone in the ocean? I like the idea. I like the idea very much. Give me 1 second. Originated from an island in the mirror belt called what sounds scaly enough? Srila, right? That sounds very scaly. Srila was an elongated S. They get it on their own tongue. Into the depths of the mirror belt. We cannot put them in the mirror belt. Because the mirror belt was only fully mapped when they had Aether technology. You cannot sail there. That was like one of our main points. This does not work. Like the outside of the mirror belt, yes, you could get there, but like not the depths of the mirror belt, right? Where like the halflings thought the changeling was. Yes. The problem is, if they're an opposing empire to the orcs, then they would need to like encounter the orcs. And if the orcs were not there, because the god by then was dead, then they needed to have left the mirror belt. That is a possibility that they left it there. Okay. Okay. Then we put them like on the opposite side of the east and west, right? That's kind of a cool idea that you need to like use the god's lifeblood to get there. Like basically like that this is like the key why just like normal sailing does not work. Originate from the west, had the great devourer into the oceans. The great devourer would give them advice on what to do or where to find lesser beings. One fateful day, their god died, and in his dying breath he commanded the Nagashi to set out and take what is rightfully yours. I want it different. I want to say the message should be something that like alludes to, bro, get me to revive, and they took it like, bro, just take over the world. Overcome the gods and master their lifeblood. The god meant to master the aether. Exactly, because the lifeblood, they see the lifeblood as like, oh, we are our god's lifeblood, so everyone else is like another god's lifeblood, right? The god meant to master the aether and revive it, while the Nagashi had no idea what aether was, and they interpreted this message as enslave the other people of Eziko, because they saw themselves as their own god's lifeblood. They're like too stupid to realize they're like slaves themselves, so they just say, oh, okay. Opposing empire of slavers to the orcs in the early days of the dynasties. They tried to take I would like that. Do they have like really embrace the Conan inspiration, have the Master Iron instead of magic? Yeah, I think that's so as well. I think they were like pious and religious and just like dropped everything and just became like very like low magic. Since they let's think about this. So they were the opposing force in the early days of the dynasties. So dynasty started, they are like, oh, our god is dead. We should also add that like as a side note, I think this is like later on in the formatting when we put this on sides. I would love to have this like guide to Eziko. We are like doing like page layouts and stuff like that. I want to have like an actual PDF for that. Where we like do like side notes of like people who are like saying, oh yeah, this is by the way like people side note, later on it would be theorized heavily that the god of the Nagashi was the physical body of the changeling. I think like I like the idea of like having this page layout and then you have like a post-it on the side, right? Basically, them like saying, oh yeah, by the way, these idiots who are like changeling cultists, I didn't know. So yeah, they were an opposing Empire of Slavers to the Orcs. And then like unlike the Orcs, they went the militaristic route of arming and no, this is a stupid sentence. When they got a foothold with many species now lost to time. They encountered the rapidly expanding orcs with their elven sorcerers. Since the Nagashi never dabbled into the magics and did not use Aether or its energy for anything else but the offerings of their old master. They were overwhelmed and needed to fall back. As a last resort, they build themselves jungle fortresses in forms of pyramids and ziggurats, which were heavily fortified by mechanical traps, well-armed soldiers, and many and deadly poisons. Yeah, I was like thinking about if they deadly poisons. I think that's like how they just like survived and did not get like counter enslaved, where they retreat back to these like ziggurats and have their societies there. And what they do is, and I find that is like the smartest thing how we can keep them like going and guessing. Many of these fortresses were designed as labyrinths to confuse invaders as well. And were expanded underground through tunnels that reached into the cavernous systems below the earth. While dangerous, these escapes would save many Nagashi from death. I feel like they will poison plants and labyrinth dwellers. The problem with is the leshies we do not have really at this point, right? Because we reflavored leshies from the ground up. I wanted to have them be like basically like still like the idea of them being a druid's plant familiar, but like getting sentience through Aether. So there will be like very little leshies, right? At this point in time, we are like very prehistoric at this point. Minotaurs is like I would say yes. Minotaurs, I'm like 100% with you. They actually. The problem is, since we said they're like very much Age of Conan and did not know about Aether, they cannot raise leshies. Otherwise, I would have said, okay, they learn how to like make poisonous leshies, right? While dangerous, these escapes would save many Nagashi from death and would lead them to other fortified safe havens. Do you think after the war with the orcs they say, okay, our low magic society of like isolationist snake people with poisons is not the wisest thing we should have done in a magic setting? They realized, oh shit, we're in a spellcasting setting, and they just learn this. They learn the druidism. I like the idea. I like that idea that everyone says, fuck man, druidism is not that bad of a trade, and the orcs just discard it, and it's like always the fucking saving grace. I like that the druids in this setting have like an actual fucking good role, where like everyone is like, okay, druidism is super practical, because let's face it, nowadays it would be fucking great too. If I would be a spellcaster nowadays, with like the knowledge that I will never be like a high level spellcaster, I would definitely be a druid. For like general life stuff, druid is just the best spellcaster to be in real life, I feel like. Maybe something like a sorcerer or wizard, depending on like how charismatic you are, right? Because I'm not wise, that's my biggest problem. I think I have a higher charisma than I have a high wisdom, but I don't know. They employed some of their known slaves called Minotaurs in their labyrinths, since they had a knack for orienting in small intertwined corridors, and proved deadly enough with the equipment at hand. Like, I think that's like one of the main things is they just use the Minotaurs. They enslaved them, right? At least like one group of Minotaurs. Where did we say that? Many of the fortresses design. No. But yeah, now they have like the Minotaurs basically, and now like stuff happens, right? Orc dynasties happen, elves rebel first time, they where they fought the orcs, they lose. We are in the point where like the heritage war starts, and then we say heritage war, baby. And we say the easiest thing that we can like claim is the why does it the Nagaji drove out. No, do they drive the orcs out? I like them failing. We cannot have everyone beat the orcs like on the first try, because for everyone it's like, oh yeah, they kick the orcs' asses. The Nagaji just reclaimed their lands when they realized the orcs did not care enough to keep them. When they did strike at the orcs, they were yeah, exactly. I was like, okay, one idiot, like there's like 100% like that one idiot tribe of Nagaji, right? That tries to like say, oh, they flee, let's kill them, and then they get like fuck murdered, like absolutely. When they did strike at the orcs, they were immediately put back into their place until the orcs turned a blind eye again, in the hopes that the Nagaji's former slaves would revolt against them as well. Now we have like this, right? The Nagaji are just like sitting there, they get their faces kicked in, they fight against the orcs, they lose again, and the orcs say, okay, we cannot do this conflict right now. They let the snakes take the lands. Maybe they get murdered by their former slaves. The problem with that is, what the orcs did not account for, because the orcs are fucking fools in this setting, like for most of the time. Between like, I don't know, Elven Independence and Heritage War is like 400 years, right? And like, of course, people don't forget, but like 400 years is a long time. The most of the people they enslaved were not alive anymore. They were like longer in Orcish enslavement than they were in Nagaji enslavement. And many of the, I mean, yeah, modern humans, yes, modern humans, okay. Modern humans is a different thing. Like, it's like we have like the history still available, which like most people in like times like these, like when you were enslaved, your history was destroyed as well. We're lucky that like we have so much documented shit about this. Let's be real. But yeah, you're absolutely right with the modern humans. Shake made it me there, bruh. Anyways, what do they do for the rest of the Heritage War? Who likes them? Who likes the Nagaji? Yeah, that's a good question. Do the Minotaurs like them? Because they were enslaved by them, right? Let's think. When the dust, when the conflicts heated up more and more, the Nagaji understood that they would not survive if they tried to rebuild an empire. So to bolster their borders, they allied we get to that in just a second. 1 second. They made a truce with the Minotaurs, giving up some of their lands and creating a safety perimeter around their lands, right? So basically, they just say, okay, Minotaurs, you have lived under us. We see your value now. We're sorry what we did. Go. We let you go. Just, you can live on our lands, on the borders of our lands, so we just don't interfere with each other anymore, so the situation can cool down. Just live on live on the border. So they have like this like safety perimeter with these giant oxmen who are like very aggressive, where they can sit in the background and plan, right? And that's when the following happens. Still in the Heritage War, by the way. Exactly. They just like say it's more worth to have them free, repopulate, and do their own shit in the background, while we have like all of the other shit still here. We have like the fortifications. If they start attacking us, we just piss off. I know they find their way through our labyrinths, but after that we're gone, right? And like the Minotaurs are like, okay, fuck you guys, but we take freedom, right? Before we get like poison murdered by you assholes. And so they are like they build like this like truce where like the poison people say, yo, we can't supply you with shit when you defend our borders, basically. And so like this is like how the alliance forms, and how they, from like slave and master relationship, they become loose allies. And now we go to the Athamaru. So we need to see if they fit in, right? Yo, see you in just a few. During the War of Unity, Supreme Leader was killed during the Eighth of Blood. They joined in the Unity to reclaim the Supreme Leader's soul. I have an idea. While the Minotaurs were defending the lands, the Nagaji oriented themselves towards the oceans in hopes of making breakthroughs in sailing and shipbuilding. I feel like it would be like a good step for them, where they're like, oh yeah, shit, we need to get, maybe have an escape route. If the Minotaurs start fucking around, we just piss off through the seas, right? And that's where the where they meet. Like this is where they come upon a village of Athamaru just off the shores, hidden in the waters. With the Athamaru and the Nagaji never having met, the situation started out tense. But the Athamaru village was interested in the happenings above water. They started getting involved in diplomacy for one, because the Athamaru needed allies above the waves. Informants, right? Above the waves. While the Nagaji could use defenders to bolster their seaside protectors. Seaside borders. Defenses. So the Nagaji at that point, they are not good at shipbuilding. They're just like using mundane tools and shit like this. They try to build ships. They try to like learn this. But then they meet the Athamaru by accident and those hit it off a little bit, right? Because the Athamaru at this point, we just know that they, where are they? Athamaru. There. Because like we know that they mainly live in the deep oceans. They are a very old civilization, right? They kept out of the Heritage War. And they are like the magic guys underwater, right? So now this relationship bloomed at the tail end of the Heritage War. Resulting in the Nagaji learning basics, the basics of Druidism. I think this is like wise to write, because the relationship like should like and like they should learn Druidism from them, and this results in them like learning, getting like deeper into like toxicology, right? While the Athamaru commanded the waves, the Nagaji wanted to learn the trades of plant growth to grow foliage for protection and plants for poison mixing. So we are now at the tail end of the Heritage War, right? And I think we are at a good point to stop today's stream, because now we have them like mixing poisons and doing all that jazz. So we have another stream coming on Tuesday, because tomorrow I cannot do stuff. So I will be back on Tuesday. I said I would do an art stream there. The idea is still that I'm doing an art stream, but maybe we are finishing the Nagaji and then switch over to art, because I want to have them done at that point. Because the Nagaji, we can like get a little bit of stuff in there. We need to, what we definitely did not do today much is like involve them in like what happens like during the before the Aether Flood. we just touched upon everyone, but not everyone was like super involved there, right? Some were just like watching and building up their societies quietly. But yeah, I would definitely stop streaming now because I want to go to bed very soon and I need to do my laundry. So what we're doing is I'm looking at my friends and everyone is offline. That is sad. Wow. Okay. I'm sad. Nobody's streaming. Well, then I'm not raiding. Maybe next time. So yeah, take care as well. Again, next time we are finishing the Nagashi and then we're like seeing if we're doing art after that. So see you around. Thank you for watching and thank you for helping and writing and having me help you, because that's like also a very big part that we bounce back and forth. So yeah, see you around. Have a good evening and we will see each other on Tuesday. Bye bye.